So thank you very much for coming to Black Lives Matter, Racist Policing and the Fight for Justice. We know that Black people are affected disproportionately by stop and search and the use of Section 60. We know that BAME communities are overrepresented in the criminal justice system. And we know that racism is an everyday occurrence when it comes to the police for lots of Black people in this country. So we've got a list of speakers today, some who are speaking from personal experience and some who are speaking from the work that they've been doing over the last couple of years. We have people who have lost their loved ones to racism, and I think that it's incredibly important to have them here to talk about how we can support them in their search and in their fight for justice. So I'm going to introduce my first speaker. My first speaker is Neomi Bennett, who's the founder of Quality for Black Nurses. Naomi is a nurse, and police officers stopped her in 2019 because they said that her front windows were tinted and too dark. In what was racist profiling, she was convicted of obstructing a police officer, but prosecutors later on decided not to challenge her appeal. So we've got Naomi. Naomi, you've got 5 minutes to tell us about your work and that particularly horrific experience, but how we can continue to support the work that you're doing. Naomi?
Okay, hi, my name's Neomi Bennett. I'm a registered nurse and I'm also an inventor of a product called NeoSlip. And as Barbara rightly explained, I was stopped back in 2019. So I'd been working a nursing shift and I was going out in the evening just with a friend. And when I came back, I was parked up on the road, and I was my car was completely legal. I was just having a conversation, and before I knew it, my car became surrounded by lots of police, and they were making lots of different allegations. They were saying that I had tinted windows. They were saying that I had like illegal weapons and stolen goods, and all this was really taking me back because none of it was true. I think because I voiced my concerns and I basically named the elephant in the room, the officer seemed to get enraged with me, and it was almost as if I was then punished going forward because the police searched my car. They found nothing illegal. There was no wrongdoing. However, they still went on to charge me for obstruction, and that was they claimed for the 6 minutes that I was refusing to get out of the car. And then they took me back to the station and locked me up for probably the worst 19 hours of my life. And they locked me up, and even though I was pleading my innocence and really quite confused about the whole experience, I didn't know really what was going on. And then they subsequently charged me for obstruction, and I was found guilty in a magistrate's court for obstruction, even though I still didn't quite understand what it was I was supposed to have obstructed. So I was found guilty, and then it took me about 14 months to clear my name. So I had to appeal that conviction. Because being a nurse, obviously being a nurse, you can't have any kind of criminal record. You have to stay away from the police in that sort of capacity. The police lied about me as well. They wrote in their statements that they found drugs in my car, and they made out that it was hospital drugs. So then a referral also went into the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So, I had this business that I set up, NeoSlip, which is a device to help older people put their compression socks on. And from that business, I had a small reserve in my organisation. So I had to use that. It cost me in total about £14,000 to clear my name. So I'm still fighting with the police at the moment to try and get back my costs. Over a year later, they're still not wanting to give me back my losses. In fact, the prosecution ordered that I pay back part of the prosecution costs. The judge made that order. So, but what I've done subsequently and going on, I've set up an organisation called Equality for Black Nurses. And what Equality for Black Nurses do is support Black nurses, Asian nurses, ethnic minorities who are going through a similar cycle within the health service. Because Black nurses are disproportionately referred to the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So that's an organisation that I've set up. So that's me turning a really terrible negative situation into positive. And every day we're helping lots of nurses with therapy and also legal advice. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi, and you kept to time. Again, really sorry about this horrific incident, but I think you are showing us why it's important to, when we see injustice, to stand up and fight, no matter how hard it might be. And we're all 100% behind you, and we support you in your fight for justice, in your fight for clearing your name and getting those costs back. But I think it's also incredibly inspiring that you turn that situation into helping other people who were discriminated against institutionally and supporting them to also fight their case. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you, and we send you all the love and support as you continue to do this really important work. So I'm going to introduce my next speaker. My next speaker is Ryan Calacho, and Ryan he's documented this on social media, so people go on social media and follow Ryan. He's got his social media name in his name in the Zoom, perfect. And Ryan's been repeatedly stopped and searched by police on several occasions. They've damaged his car, they've said all kinds of things against him, and Ryan can tell you about the incident and what he's been doing as well to fight for justice and how we can support him. Ryan? Ryan, you need to unmute.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, go for it.
Sorry, I'm using my phone, unfortunately, not my laptop. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I just wanted to say that, yeah, I've had quite a number of incidents that have happened with the Met Police in particular, but also the City of London Police. So last year, when I was dropping food to my dad during the pandemic, I had police officers aggressively tailgate me in a territorial support van. I couldn't even see the number plate. That's how close they were. I thought I was under arrest. They came out, they started banging on my window. When I questioned the search, I got put in handcuffs. They said there was a large smell of cannabis coming from my vehicle, but they didn't say that immediately. Never smoked any drugs, never taken any drugs, never been involved with any drugs in my life. So it was quite distressing, naturally. I'm quite lucky that just prior to that, I dropped food to my dad, so he obviously knows that's not the case. I was quite angry at the time. I did try to get the Met Police respond. On social media, they didn't. And within 4 days, I went for an interview on Channel 4 about institutional racism within the police and the system. After that interview on the way home, I got blocked in when I parked up to order some food on the way home because it was during a pandemic, so I never got a lot of takeaways at the time. So I went to pick something up. I got blocked in. They said as they approached me, I was dashing stuff within my waistband. They started talking about Class A and B drugs, you know. And within about 4 minutes, it went from 3 police officers to 30 police officers. My window was smashed in. I was assaulted. I still have memory problems to this day now because I've had my head smashed on the pavement, picked up, smashed on the wall. They found my stop and search slip from 6 days prior, which is the one I just talked about. And they started laughing collectively. I had a drug test on the road, and again, came back negative. I got locked in a cell overnight. They wouldn't allow solicitors in the police station at the time due to the pandemic. So I had to have one on the phone. So I was getting interrogated on a one-on-one kind of basis at the time during that interview. Around 4 a.m, they did say to me, oh, we can give you your car keys back, but we're not going to do that. So they made me walk around the City of London, Liverpool Street, Bishopsgate at night until business hours at 9 a.m. During that time, it was coming close to 9 a.m, I decided to go towards where my car was held, which was Wood Street in Barbican Police Station. On my way walking there, I got stopped again whilst walking by City London Police. They said that if I'm up to no good, that you know, there's cameras watching me, and then they knew I was in custody already because he said that. So they're just, you know, more of their interrogation tactics. And in the next half an hour, they were late to give me my car back as well. They sent those same officers that stopped me on foot to give my car back. He drove it out and it was completely trashed. Things were, I believe, missing. It was just, there's glass everywhere. They expected me to drive the car back like that, you know. When a pandemic as well, to get a window fixed was extremely difficult in May last year. I even, you know, had a recording of all of these things. This is all video documented as well. This is not just my word. They even said they're not going to pay for it. This is all audio recorded to City of London Police. And then again, you know, I'm still fighting these cases. You know, there's so much evidence against the Met and the City of London Police. But again, some months later, I got stopped by the Met Police whilst working. and they said they started talking about stolen property. And again, whilst I was working, then they couldn't find anything. They said, "Oh, my number plate's illegal," which it wasn't. And I had to fight for that. You know, they were continually patronizing me. Again, all video documented. They actually injured my wrist when they smashed them against the wall. They broke the brick wall of the church in Trinity Church Square in Southwark at the time to put handcuffs on me. And yeah, I had to fight to get that number plate charge removed because I got a fine for it. And yeah, eventually they just gave me a 2-line letter saying, "Oh, it's been removed." You know, there was no apology yet again. And recently as well, my car's been written off. I got hit by a TfL bus, so that car is completely gone. But within 6 days of buying a new vehicle, I've been stopped again. And it was whilst working, you know, in Crystal Palace Sports Centre. They said they believed I was dealing drugs. And again, this is just very condescending because, you know, I had colleagues watching me. But yeah, my stories go on and on, and I can't finish them in this meeting. But please do get at me at social media and anything at all. I'm willing to talk more, and we can do something to fight these the corrupt police and also the system that's institutionally racist.
Thank you very much, Ryan. So sorry to hear about the horrific racist incidents that have happened to you on multiple occasions, and it's part of a wider issue of institutional racism in the police, and the fact that Black people are more likely to be stopped and searched, the fact that Section 60 in the law have been given powers to stop people without probable cause, to be able to do that, and again, disproportionately target Black, Asian and other ethnic minority communities, and what that means, you know, once you enter the criminal justice system, as we've heard from Naomi. So again, really sorry, Ryan, that you went through all of this. And again, people should definitely follow Ryan on social media, because he's really campaigning to have these things addressed and, you know, addressed properly, and he get the apology that he deserves and the compensation that he deserves. And I think one of the ways we can make that happen is by amplifying and sharing his story. So please, people, follow Ryan on social media and support his campaign. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next speaker. I'm going to check because they weren't here when we started. So I don't know if Mina is in the room. I don't think so. Okay, I don't think Mina's here with us, sadly. Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna move right along. Okay, wonderful. So our next speaker we have on the platform today is Sukhdev from the Justice for Ricky Real campaign. So Sukhdev is the mother of Ricky Real, and Ricky was a 20-year-old student who disappeared while on a night out with friends. They had been attacked by 2 white youths who were shouting racist abuse at them. The friends ran in different directions, and while others reached home, Ricky never did come home, and a week later his body was found in the Thames. And this is an issue that's been ongoing for decades in the fight for justice, but also more recently revealed that the police were spying on the family campaign to find answers and to get justice for Ricky. So really honoured to have Sukhdev with us this afternoon to tell us a bit more about the relaunch of the campaign to get justice for Ricky. Sukhdev?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to rush on because there's a lot to say. Okay, racism is an ugly word because when it raises its ugly head, it leaves mothers like me with empty arms. My son Ricky Ray was racially attacked in Kingston on 14th of October 97 and was found a week later in River Thames. The views of the police were that he was just an ordinary Asian young man who had run away from home to escape an arranged marriage, as they thought all Asian parents do that. As that did not fit, the police officer winked and said my son might be gay and had run away to avoid telling us. Thus, no need for further investigation. They were talking about a person they had never met or knew anything about. Their basis assumptions because of our race and color, which sent out the message that Asian parents do not know their own children. And the police acknowledged to accept the racial attack, which culminated in my son's death. My family and friends carried out the investigation ourselves, like leafleting area, locating CCTV cameras, locating witnesses, and even arranging our own crime watch program on TV. We spent 14 to 16 hours a day looking for Ricky, and the moment he was found on the 14th of October, the police immediately closed the case as an accident at the river without carrying any investigation or any forensic tests. My children were informed of their brother's death by the police officers in our absence, bearing in mind the youngest child was only 11 years old at the time, just a young child, nobody to comfort him. The Pca report, in response to our complaint, heavily criticized the chief officer with the others. The chief officer decided to take an early retirement, as they always do. This is a secret report and I'm not allowed to talk about it. But my MP, Mr. John MacDonald, raised some serious points in the House of Commons in 1999 and are included in the Hansard magazine. We set up Justice for Ricky Real campaign and seek support to find out what happened to my son, and also to expose institutionalized racism within the Metropolitan Police Force. The more mistakes we discovered, the more evidence we handed to the police started to disappear. They lost the CCTV footage, cameras, and other stuff, and said we never passed them an information, and was later on proved in the inquest that we did. The inquest was heard on the 1st of November in Fulham, 99 in Fulham. This again turned into a mini trial. One mistake after another was unfolded. We were blamed that due to the publicity our campaign had created, had hindered the police investigation. The chief officer faced the jury and said that Ricky's death was just an accident, but in fact, the jury returned an open verdict. We thought we had dealt with our share of grief and humiliation. When I was told by a reporter that the chief officer who had left the initial bungled investigation into Ricky's death and then retired before any action could be taken against him, had approached a journalist and asked her to write an article about Ricky, telling her his side of the story, and print photos taken during Ricky's post-mortem, which he had in his possession and retained following his retirement. Imagine my horror on that day. The reporter confirmed this to my lawyer and the police. The police found these photographs at the ex-police officer's residence. No action was taken by the CPS against this officer for retaining police material from the live investigation following his retirement and then attempting to have them published. The CPS had the evidence, but again, they protected their own officers. No thought given to us as to how much we would suffer. Again, my color came in the way of justice. We were told that we had come under the radar of the police because I had refused to go away as they wanted, but continued to bring the mistakes out in the open. People I thought were my friends and supporters turned out to be undercover police officers who were spying on us. We are co-participants in the undercover police inquiry. Some disclosure was given to us, and it makes a very unpleasant reading as to what they were doing to me. Of course, I am unable to talk about this due to the restriction order I had to sign to get my reports. The spying breached my human rights, but they did not care. They continued with the spying at the time when we were very vulnerable. We were all broken up. They told us very early on they did not have the resources to continue with the investigation, but they spent those vital resources on spying on me. Checking my movements were more important to them than my son's life and death. I want to achieve justice for my son, and I need support. His killers are still out there, no doubt complacent, because they have never been caught, free to kill again, because the police gave them license to kill again. Ricky's case has changed policing policy. The missing persons guidelines and the family liaison officers guidelines and training were all redrawn due to Ricky's case, but it is not enough. Policies are just bits of paper that the police wave around to suggest things have changed. We all need to engage to make this change and be treated equally. We have a right to equality. Justice has no color. Please register on Eventbrite for Ricky Real Time for Justice conference on the 19th of October at 7 p.m. It is also to launch a Ricky Real Day. Please help us to support this event and get justice for my son. The road ahead is very long and lonely and dark, but with your support, I aim to get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sukhdev, for a really gut-wrenching blow by blow of how the criminal justice completely failed you, and Ricky's death we've not found justice. And yeah, thank you so much. We posted the link for the event next week in the chat, so please click on the link and you can register. I think it's really important for all of us to show up for Sukhdev and to show up and to demand justice for Ricky. Thank you very much again, Sukhdev, for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go with our next speaker, and our next speaker is Ima from All Black Lives UK. All Black Lives UK are a youth-led Black liberation grassroots organisation based in the UK. The group held Black Lives Matter protests every Sunday for 10 weeks in several major UK cities last year. All Black Lives UK were behind the march through Bristol in June, when demonstrators toppled the statue of slave trader Edward Colston. Ima, thank you very much for joining us. Really pleased to have you.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say thank you to all the speakers for coming and speaking today. Everything you guys have said has really resonated with me. The past year and a half has been a struggle, and it continues to be one. We protested for 10 weeks straight, especially in London. We were constantly heads with the Met Police, and it kind of confuses me how we're kind of repeating the same pattern all over again, especially the past few months. We have had multiple people being attacked by the police. Obviously, racism in the UK has been terrible. Physical attacks keep happening. And I think that as a community, we need to focus on each and every single case of police brutality that we see and get justice for everyone who's been attacked, because us as Black people in the UK and other ethnic minorities, we know that we wouldn't be seen the same way as our white counterparts are seen on a day-to-day basis. And I think that it really has hit a lot of people in the UK. For example, you saw how many people were protesting last year, but it still hasn't changed. Our government is still constantly putting out bills that affect us. The police are constantly going out, harassing our children, harassing us, harassing women. And it's gotten to a point that if we don't start taking more action, nothing's gonna change. And I think that obviously, we saw a lot of performative activism last year, and I think that that really, really highlights everything, because once Black people are in the most dangerous situation and it's only Black people or ethnic minorities speaking about the things that they face, no one listens to us, no one. But as soon as our white counterparts start speaking about the same thing, suddenly a bunch of attention is being drawn to it. And living in the UK as a Black person is scary. Going to protest as a Black person is scary. Going to the shop as a Black person is scary. Walking down the street as a Black person is scary. It is not safe for us. And it's disheartening to see over and over again that our feelings are invalidated, our emotions are invalidated. The racism that we receive is invalidated by everyone around us. And especially with the Met Police. I don't know if you guys know, but in March of 2021, during all the Kill the Bill protests, a bunch of Black activists, including me, were targeted by the police. We were constantly told that the police were near us. We couldn't feel safe anywhere because we were fighting for our rights, but the people who refuse to give us our rights are actively chasing us and attacking us. I think that it's been a hard year and a hard few months for Black people. And I think, especially during Black History Month, we really have not gotten the best out of anything. And I just wanted to say to all the Black people and all the ethnic minorities in here, it is okay to relax, take a break. You don't always have to be out fighting. You can relax and keep yourself safe, because the emotional trauma that we have received throughout our whole lives, especially living in the UK, especially the last year and a half, has taken a toll on not only me, but all my activists, everyone that I speak to. So I just want us as ethnic minorities to realize that it is okay to not be okay. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to be stressed. No one should invalidate your emotions or your feelings. I'm only 20. I started this when I was 18 and it was very overwhelming, but I have learned a lot over the last year and a half of constantly protesting. And it is that everyone, every ethnic minority, every single Black person needs a break and a breather, because we have been through a lot the past year and a half. And I hope that you guys all have a good day. I'm sorry if that was a bit depressing, but I hope you guys are all okay.
Thank you very much, Ima. It's been a real pleasure to work with All Black Lives UK. You know, it's incredibly inspiring last year when you took to the street and organized so many protests across so many towns and cities. I think is a credit to young people coming up and saying, you know what, this world that we're inheriting is unacceptable, and we are going to get out on the streets and we're going to demand justice and we're going to demand change. So thank you very much again for joining us. I'm going to go with our next speaker, Janet Alder from the United Family and Friends campaign, which is a campaign of family and friends of people who have died at the hands of the police or in police custody. But Janet is the sister of Christopher Alder, who died in police custody in April 1998. She's been seeking justice ever since, but it was recently discovered that the wrong body was released to the family subsequently. And again, Janet's been doing a lot of work to highlight how that is also part of the injustice that is continuing since Christopher's death. So Janet, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say solidarity to Sukhdev, who I've known for a lot of years now, and been on plenty of platforms with us speaking. And I'd like to also say solidarity to Ryan, because what we're actually seeing and what is actually happening on the ground are two totally different things. We've got the TV that's showing more Black faces than ever. Day in, day out, more Black faces than ever. I believe that there's a two-pronged approach to this. One being to inflame the emotions of the white people that are basically saying the Black people are on the telly all the time, this, that, and the other. And the other being a way of basically saying, look, we like Black people, nothing to do with us, yeah? And what that does is dampen the sympathies of what's actually going down on the ground behind the scenes. One of the things that really does concern me is the powers that have been given within the COVID, disguised as looking after our health, and people quite willingly giving away their power and allowing themselves to be locked up, this, that, and the other, divided and from each other, so we can't talk to each other and whatsoever. And while that's going on, we can't get together. We can't talk to each other and let people know. And people are being picked off and isolated, like Ryan, yeah? Nobody could go to the police station, do you know what I mean, to find out what's happened to him. If something happens, nobody could go to the hospital and find out what's happening to him, yeah? I think the COVID has been exploited, yeah? So that they can abuse these powers, and we need to start waking up to really what is going on, instead of thinking that, do you know what I mean, we're all in danger of dying every single day and whatsoever. We've really, really kind of got to knock that on the head and really see what is happening to Black people behind the scenes. Yeah, because there is a lot going on. The police have been given more power to stop and search more. Yeah, if a young lad gets beat up by the police on the street, nobody's even going to know about it. Yeah, nobody's going to even be able to go to the hospital and see his injuries and whatsoever. Yeah, and so I think we've got to be really, really careful to balance what is going on, with the COVID pandemic and what they are using purposely to hide whatever they're doing. Me myself, I've been campaigning, I say, for 25 years, in April, for my brother that was, murdered by the police. Now, you know, what they tried to portray was, oh, this guy's been to a nightclub, he's been punched, he fell unconscious. We didn't know that he was unconscious and whatsoever. We dragged him into the custody suite. Oops, he died on the floor and nobody knew about it. All the evidence was hidden. It was hidden to what happened to him in the van. It was hidden to why his trousers ended up to his knees without a belt. It was hidden to why he had more severe injuries. Yeah, because everybody's emotions started going on to how bad it is. Look how he's been left like that. But you've got to ask yourself, why would you leave somebody like that? Why would you leave somebody to die like that? Yeah, if you're doing a job, do you know what I mean? And somebody collapses in front of you, yeah, if you don't know how to look after them medically, you start looking for somebody else that did. So what was it in this situation? Do you know what I mean? Why these police officers did absolutely nothing? What was it that, you know, gave them the power, yeah, to actually leave Christopher to die in such inhumane conditions? What was it that gave them the confidence to think that they could stand there and make monkey and chimpanzee noises over his body? What was it that gave them the power to destroy his clothes, to dry clean the police officer's clothing, to clean the van? What was it that, and I'll tell you what it was? It's the lack of accountability, yeah? And it's us, because we look at the police in such a way that we need them for protection all the time. But the government also use them to protect them, yeah? You know what I mean? We've got to really seriously start thinking and questioning what the police are about nowadays, yeah? Because they're not the Dixon and Dock Green, do you know what I mean, that you can just go and get help from. Look at the young girl, Sarah, you know, the Everard, who got killed. Yeah, that was done under COVID. That was done over the powers. That was done while we were sat in our houses, all running away from a virus. Yeah, and we've got to really start thinking about what's going on. I honestly, you know, I won't say I'm an innocent girl, because I'm not that type of, you know, girl. I'm not an innocent girl, but what I was very naive to what went on. Yeah, I honestly thought that the state did the right thing. I honestly used to believe that people might have been in trouble or what they did to the police officer. And I'm just being honest, and that's like many people in this country have got that same attitude. Yeah, because it doesn't involve you, or, you know what I mean, because it doesn't involve them. It's easy to switch off and not think about what other people are suffering and what people are going through. Yeah. And I really believed, after watching that horrific video of my brother dying on the custody suite floor, and all those white police officers stood around and nobody doing anything, I honestly thought there would have been somebody in this country who had the decency to get up and do something. But no, nobody did nothing. Nobody did absolutely nothing about it. It became acceptable. This was before George Floyd, yeah? You know, and I used to get so many people come up and sympathize and, you know, we're really sorry, as if this was my problem. But this is not just my problem. This is all our problems. This is the future of our children, yeah? Nobody knows where the children are going to be. Whether you're white, you don't know whether they're going to marry somebody black and you're going to have a, do you know what I mean, a black child or whatever. So it involves every single one of us, and people need to really, really start waking up to what is going on in this country. We've got the most racist government ever, yeah? I couldn't even trust them for anything, not anything that comes out of the mouth. I don't believe a thing. And the black community don't believe them, yeah? You know, they keep going on about black people won't be vaccinated. Is there any wonder? We've seen the history, yeah? We've seen the history, but we've also got what's going on day to day. Black women more prone to die in childbirth. Black men more prone to be, you know, be put in prison. Black men more prone to be stop and searched. Do you know what I mean? You know, just the healthcare system and whatsoever, the way that black people are pushed to the forefront. But all I ever see is white people going, oh, well, I've spent 12 hours a day, I've been doing this and the COVID and this. I've never seen one black person online saying, I spent 12 hours, you know, looking after COVID patients. But then the next minute, they're telling us that it's the black people are dying because they're on the front line. But I've not seen one black person stand there and complain about being on a ward 12 hours a day looking after COVID patients. Not one. So then we've got to start asking questions. Why did they make it about the Black and Asian people? Yeah, because all of a sudden they stopped. They're not saying take more vitamin D. They're not saying this, that, and the other. Do you know what I mean? But nobody's asking any questions. Everybody just accepts what they're being told. Now, after seeing my brother die like that and knowing what they'd done with his body, an ex-paratrooper that fought for this country and really believed that he was doing the right thing for this country, after seeing them discard his body the way that they have, after seeing them swap his body for a 77-year-old woman, yeah, and hide his body in 6 body bags in a mortuary for 11 years, and at the same time use his body for training purposes, training police officers, yeah, trying to portray that it was this woman who we buried. Nobody should ask me to believe a word that they're saying in this government. Nobody should ask me to believe a word that they've got to say about anything. Yeah. Now, we took, you know, I remember taking the case to the European Court of Human Rights. The government fought tooth and nail to keep it out the public domain. They kept tooth and nail not to give us justice. Yeah. And when we went to the European Court, last minute they admitted that Christopher's life on that custody suite floor was denied. That is, his death was through racism, and it was inhumane and degrading. Nobody could even question that from the beginning. So why has it taken so long? Why did it take them so long? It's only because they were forced to. Same like the George Floyd thing, yeah? They were forced to do something about that because everybody had seen it. But time and time again, you know what I mean? There's many families that I know of, yeah? Their loved ones are dying in police custody. They're trying to put it down to mental illness. Mental illness does not kill you. There's many people walking about the street with mental illness and not dying. But all of a sudden, they're coming to the hands of the police and they're dying, yeah? You've got to ask the question why. Boris Johnson is giving these police officers more and more powers to suppress us. Yeah, they're really angry about what's happened with Black Lives Matter, which has woke people up, do you know what I mean, to actually the injustices that's going on in this country and America. Yeah, so they're really angry. So what they're trying to do is claw back. So on the television, they'll push on all these black faces to make people think that we've sorted everything. But behind the scenes, there's some really nefarious stuff going on, and people need to really wake up. Yeah. We're not doing, you know, personally myself, some people see them as opportunities. I don't see them as opportunities. I see them as, you know, I see the things that they're doing are planned, yeah? They are planned. They really do not like what's happened to Black Lives Matter, and they're doing everything possible at this moment to dampen it and to turn the public against each other and whatsoever. That's how I see what's going on, yeah? And that's through my experience, coming from my eyes. But as I said, you know, what had happened after there'd been an investigation into the swapping of Christopher's body, yeah? Somebody swapped his body in that mortuary. He was tagged with his correct names on his wrists. 2 tags on his, and 2 tags on one wrist, 1 tag on another with his correct name on. So how could they mistake a 77-year-old woman who'd been found in her house 2 weeks later, so she was decomposed, with a 37-year-old ex-fit paratrooper? The evidence is there, and the evidence has been hidden, and they've known all along. They prevented that other family coming over and taking their loved one back to Nigeria. They prevented him coming over and getting a visa to bury her. And why? Because they knew that was my brother. Yeah. And they knew they were hiding him all these years. They knew that they were that cocky and that racist that they were allowing the police to use his body, taking it in and out of the freezer all the time to show trainee police officers. And why did they do this? Because I was shining a light on the injustice of Christopher's murder. That's why they were doing it. And why do you think they thought they could get away with it? Because they always have. Because the state does nothing. Because the CPS does nothing. Yeah. You know, governments give them more power to do what they're doing. That's the reason. Now, it might fall at my door, yeah, but if you want to stand up and rebel against something, yeah, don't be surprised when it comes to your door as well. Don't be surprised if it comes to your door, because it's so easy to brush off. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, that it's just, oh, you know, we're really, really sorry. This is a really sad occasion and whatsoever. It's taken me absolute years to find out exactly what has happened to Christopher. He was CS gassed, beaten, yeah, and then basically left to die. And then his body was swapped with a 77-year-old woman, and it was hidden in 6 body bags for 11 years. They had told that family, we will organise the funeral. All you've got to do is turn up at the cemetery. Yeah. You tell me when they want to keep people in this country, do you know what I mean? Why didn't they allow them to repatriate that family, a body? So, you know, we hear it all the time, migrants coming into the country, taking this, that, the other. Yeah. So you tell me why they wouldn't allow that family to take their loved one home. Why did they want to be the ones to organise a funeral and tell the family to go to the cemetery and wait there? Yeah, they wouldn't even allow them to view their loved one's body. They said, we don't do that in this country. And tried to make some kind of ridiculous scenario that they wanted to take photographs of it. No, they didn't. They wanted the Nigerian culture, which I am of the Nigerian, but I've been brought up in Cardiff, so I don't, you know, so much follow that. But the Nigerian culture was to wrap her in a scarf. They wanted to see their loved one so that they could wrap her in a scarf. And that is the only reason that this came to light, because they decided if they didn't allow them to see their loved one, they was going to cancel the funeral. So then they'd turn around and say, oh, we didn't know, it's a man, we didn't know. No, they did know, yeah? So they put a gagging order on me so that I can't tell you the ins and outs of what's happening in that mortuary. But believe you me, they knew from day one. From day one, they knew that was my brother, Christopher. So where am I now? I'm still fighting. I'm still, you know, I feel my job is to expose what's happened, to let people know. I don't have the power, do you know what I mean? But, you know, I've not got as far as what I've got without the support of the ordinary people in this country. I've been very, very lucky, because at the beginning, it's such a terrifying experience, so traumatic, that if I hadn't have had the people around me reassuring me, I could have easily flipped my lid, very easily. They could have easily, you know, like singled me out. But they don't single me out, do you know what I mean? Because they know that so many people are listening and so many people are believing. And this is what's got to happen with these cases, yeah? Because what falls to the floor can come to your door. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Sure wasn't easy to recount what has been a really horrific ordeal that you've endured for decades, but we really appreciate you coming here to tell Christopher's story, so that more people know what happened to Christopher, so more people know that if it happened to Christopher, it could happen to any of us. And it's actually in all our interests, it's actually all our duty to support you, to demand that the powers that are being given to the police are repealed, because none of us are safe until all of us are safe. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to call on our last and final speaker, and then we'll take some questions and contributions from the audience and floor. Some of the tech support here in the Zoom chat are posting things into the group chat, so please do follow the links. We're following up how you can support all these different organizations, all these different individuals, so please do click on the links and engage. So my last speaker is Hussein Said, who's from Cardiff BLM and Stand Up to Racism. He's an activist with Cardiff BLM and is going to talk about the actions and campaigns taking place in Cardiff against police brutality and racist policing. Hussein?
Thank you. Yeah, it was meant to actually be Kobena, who's my friend, obviously, and in Cardiff BLM as well. But I'm a substitute, so I hope I don't disappoint anyone. So in Cardiff, we've seen, well, obviously, South Wales Police themselves, as all police forces are, incredibly racist. but recently, in the last 8 months, start of the year, we've had 3 police deaths three deaths at the hands of the police. 2, Mahmoud Hassan and Moeed Bashir, 2 young black men, and a young white man by the name of Leighton Jones. So there's been a really heavy amount of police brutality that has happened in Cardiff since the start of the year. When Mahmoud Hassan, and you can find their campaign, Justice for Mahmoud Hassan, that we've been working really close with. What happened with Mahmoud, I'll just quickly go over Moeed's case and Mahmoud's case. And also, I should say as well, in the last 3 years, there's been horrendous amounts of police racism within South Wales and Cardiff specifically, and the outer areas. You had Christopher Capasso, who was a young 13-year-old that was pushed into a river in the Rhondda. Essentially, the CPS said there was enough evidence to charge he was surrounded by 14 white people or white children. The CPS said there was enough evidence to charge the person who was responsible, but because the child was white and had a good school record and had potential to do things in the future, because of course Christopher never did, then there was no public interest in any charge or any prosecution. So as you can see, just that basic sort of a young black boy's life, it means very little and pales in comparison to a young white boy's future. And then you also had Sianda Mungaza, who Sianda is a 24-year-old. This happened when she was 21 in Brecon, which is just outside of Cardiff, where she was attacked by 3 older white men, and she fought back essentially, but she was the one who was charged with assault, and the appeal is going on, but is in prison for what could be 4 years. And in that case, for example, I mean, Sianda is like 5 foot, and she was surrounded by three or grown white men who were about 40 years old, and she's the one that gets the brunt of it. With Mahmoud, I mean, this was something that really hit the city very, very hard. So on January 10th, essentially what happened was Mahmoud, the Somali brother, he was taken into police custody in South Wales, Cardiff Bay, which is a station in Cardiff. And it was for a disturbance, apparently. I mean, they changed their story, as we all know, taken into custody. And then the next day he comes out battered and bruised, goes home and dies in his bed that very morning. Of course, that, like, you know, that, as I said, Butte Town, where it happened, is one of the oldest mixed race areas in the whole of the UK. So we as a group, we organised and we went out and we basically camped outside of the police station for 4 days straight. For about 8 hours at a time. And the difference in people's beliefs when they went there, at first, it was just raw anger at the police. But a lot of people were sort of like, maybe this is just just one occurrence. But as people started speaking and we started sort of talking more about the police are institutionally racist and, you know, there's no reform possible, then people started to really, you know, that you could see the change in consciousness, which I thought was really important. By putting the pressure on and working with the campaign so closely, we've managed with the campaign to get 2 police officers, or 3 police officers, 5 I should say, 5 police officers now being investigated by the IOPC. But as we all know, the IOPC is incredibly, ridiculously racist themselves, and essentially are just an institution to protect the cops. But we've managed to get some pressure. What happened after we protested was essentially the police, 2 months after we protested, the police started going through the footage, and they were going through the footage, the body cam footage, and they were identifying people who weren't even involved in organising, or you weren't even involved in activism, and who were just going to the police station to protest this murder. To people who were activists and who we know, and they were going to houses. They were going to our houses. They find one of the protesters as well, and the police were raiding protesters' houses. And one Pakistani boy, only 17 years old, 6 police officers dragged him out of his bed. He went to court. The police have dropped nearly all the charges. This happened about 5 different times. The police were raiding protesters' houses 2 months after. They were more interested in raiding people's houses that were there to legitimately protest what they did than they were in actually investigating the death. I mean, and to top it off, then around that time, Moeed Bashir, a Sudani brother in this case, he was murdered by the police. He was essentially the the family, because he had some issues with addiction, etc. He was having essentially what was a relapse and having a bit of a panic attack. So his family called an ambulance. But who did they send? They sent the police. So about 6 police cars came outside the house. They went in, and this is still going on, of course, and there's still, still a lot of work that we need to do. But essentially, the police went in, and Muayyid had a scar essentially from a wound. They opened the wound by trying to take him to the station. So they were manhandling him in his bedroom. His parents heard noises. They heard noises that would resemble a taser as well. They took him to, they basically tried to drag him out of his room, and in doing that, they opened up his wound, and he died on the way to the hospital. I mean, again, this is all happening within 2 months. I mean, this is incredible, the amount of death that we've had to deal with and the grief that it's caused on the communities, and all of us as a whole. And I think, in that case, the police have been incredibly slow. Went Police, which is the police in Newport where it happened, have been incredibly slow. They've done nothing. And of course, this is something we have to expect. The police will do nothing. I mean, the whole point is people here know, and of course, Janet and Sukhdev. I mean, we know that the police do nothing. I mean, they will drag you out as far as possible and as long as possible to basically exhaust you to the very end. Just to finish off, I think what like I said, we've seen a lot of death, a lot of brutality in Cardiff, and what we try to do, we try to organise. We've also started a police cop watch, called a Pantherod, which is called the Panthers in Welsh, where we'll start monitoring the police. And I think the best thing we can do to actually stop this is to get rid of the police, really, to defund them and abolish them, because they are the very nature, they will never be able to be reformed, and to organise effectively to do that, and organise with the campaigns and organise with the people this is affecting the most. And I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hussein. I think it was a good rundown of some of the incidents that have been happening in Cardiff and Wales, and what you and so many dedicated and committed activists have been doing to challenge the total abuse of power, but to also stand in solidarity with the families who have lost their loved ones, and to fight for justice. So thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so we are within the last sort of 20-25 minutes of the workshop, and as is with workshop, obviously our speakers have made really excellent contribution, have told stories that I'm sure have touched a lot of us. We would now like to go to the audience for either a question, you have a question, or you have a contribution. I'm sorry, I want to take as many people as possible to go back to my list. So I think Naomi, you were our first speaker, so I will go in that order. Naomi, if you could quickly come in, sort of 2 minutes sum up. I don't know if Naomi is still here. I could be mistaken. Yeah. Yes, you are. Wonderful. Right. Yeah. So I'll just let you come in, just really briefly. How can people support you, etc.
Yeah. So as I was saying before, I set up a nurse-led organisation called Equality for Black Nurses, and we're seeing a large incidence of nurses being investigated. So they're being reported by their line managers, often for trumped up charges that are not without that lack evidence. The same situation that happened to me in the criminal justice system is happening to Black and Asian nurses. It's disproportionate numbers of nurses being referred to the regulator, and oftentimes it has serious consequences. A lot of the nurses come to us, they're suicidal, they don't understand. Also, there's an influx of overseas nurses, international nurses, that are being treated really terribly by the organisation, who also then refer these nurses to the police. We had one nurse in Northern Ireland a patient who had racially abused her, told the managers that the nurse had thrown the call bell in his hand for assistance. This is like a 60-year-old Black nurse who had no idea what was going on. She was then arrested, but she'd gone to Sheffield to her sisters. She was arrested by Sheffield police on the instruction of Northern Ireland to be integrated. We've also got Black nurses that have been just terrible lies against them, and then they have to fight against the criminal justice system as well. So we're also looking for people that can help support the organisation by way of volunteering. We've created something called a Ubuntu Buddy, which also supports these nurses. It's just the race discrimination, the trauma that it puts on these nurses is so terrible. They're the most caring, we're from a caring profession. However, a lot of the racist managers within the NHS are sort of abusing them. So I think this is where, if anyone's got any insight or knowledge in how they can support us, we would be definitely welcoming that. And we're also on all the social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, etc. But please do reach out to us. It was really inspiring listening to some of the other speakers today. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention at the start, because again, it's so traumatic for me. Ever since I've come into contact with police, I believe that I'm getting stopped, like, you know, in a month I could get stopped once a week. And then in January this year, my son, my firstborn son, he left my house, and within about 15 minutes of him leaving my house in January, the police ambushed him and they really beat him up, and he was black and blue, and they charged him. But just last month they said there's no charges against him. But I feel like the police are following me everywhere. Some weeks I get stopped like 3 times in 1 week. And sorry, I feel like the police won't leave me alone. And if you try and tell people, they think it's me that's got the problem. If I try and talk to people that don't understand, they think it's in my head. I have to have security in my house. I've got security on my car. But what they did to my son was just heartbreaking, and I can't believe that they had my son on the ground. They took his clothes off and they were hitting him. They accused him of driving dangerously. They accused him of having drugs, and then they took him back to the police station and subjected him to a strip search. He just left the house to go to the food shop. And then last month, they said there's going to be no charges against him. But I feel like it's a direct vendetta against me. And sorry, it's so hard. But the police, they can't be reformed. There's too many bad ones, and bad people have gone into that profession so that they can exert their power and threaten and terrorize people. And predominantly Black and Asian and ethnic minorities are at the brunt of that.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I'm so sorry about what happened to your son, and yeah, I'm so sorry. But thank you for sharing with us. I know that was really hard. Thank you for being here too. We appreciate you. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to go with our next speaker who I want to come in. So Ryan, I don't know if you're still around, because I know we've been going for a little while. If you just want to come in, Ryan, and say how people can support your work, your campaign, your crusade to get justice for the injustice that you've met with, that would be really good.
Yeah, thank you again for having me back. I just want to echo exactly what Naomi has just said, because I've been in constant contact with her. I know exactly what she's been going through, including her son, and I've met her son as well. It's very, very traumatic for her. She is, you know, very much struggling on a daily basis because of what the police have done, and I can echo that for myself. But I really do feel for her, because I know exactly what it is. It's like, you know, the best thing people can do is literally support all our stories. The reason why I went public is because, you know, I was getting nowhere. I did try to be civil, you know, ask them what's going on. You know, they're very unresponsive, and they're very dismissive of everything. To this day now, I've got nothing from either the Met Police, City London Police, a long time ago, North Wales Police, all these police forces, you know, because again, as it's been previously mentioned by Hussein, I believe with the IOPC, for me, it's all internal. It's an internal system. It's all corrupt. So we've got an institutionally racist system that filters down to the police, the NHS, and everything there. And, you know, for me, there's no reforming. I don't think there's any sort of reform. I think it just needs to all go and be built up again. And, you know, a lot of people at the top, if they're, you know, dealings did come to light, and you know, a lot of them should be, you know, arrested and imprisoned, you know, and we're the ones that are having to suffer. You know, I have all the evidence against the police. Everything is there, out there. Now, had I have done what they have done, I would be facing a long time inside. Why do we need to go through courts? Why are we subject to, you know, proving our innocence, as per se? They're the ones that are making these allegations that are not true. You know, my car did not smell like cannabis. I got strip searched when they said that I was, as they approached me, I was dashing stuff within my waistband. Their exact words. Those were their exact words. And I had to be strip searched because of that, as well as assaulted. You know, I've had them mock me and things like that in person and since then as well. You know, and it just really makes me think that we're really fighting a sister. It's falling on deaf ears. It's falling on people that are laughing at us and continually mocking us. And I feel exactly what Naomi's feeling, because, you know, we just don't know what to do. You know, we have to fear every day going out. You know, I've got a brand new car now, and I do get still followed by the police. You know, it's stupid things like them now saying that my vehicle has had 3 owners. You know,
Have we lost Ryan? Because his screen's frozen for me. I don't know. Maybe my internet's just terrible. Yeah, I think we might have lost Ryan. Okay. So I'm gonna get Sukhdev. Oh, right. Okay. I think Ryan's back, but we will. Yeah. So I think we should go with Sukhdev. So Sukhdev, if you want to come in and just maybe briefly talk about the rally next week, the event next week, and what people can do to help your support for justice for Ricky.
Sorry, we have a conference next Tuesday, 19th of October at 7 p.m. and it's on change.org. Sorry, it's on Eventbrite, and people can register to take part in it. Quite a lot of MPs are talking about it, and you will get more details about the campaign and how we were treated, because there are different things. Because of the time-wise, I couldn't bring everything out in the open to you. We have a petition on change.org, which is signed by over 102,000 people, all demanded justice for Ricky. People want a fresh investigation, because the first investigation was just bungled up by the police, who never believed the racial attack and never believed the family. And the information coming from the police was that I did not know my son, that I should go away. We're going to have a EDM, early day motion, prepared by John MacDonald and signed by a lot of MPs to be debated in the House of Commons soon. It could be next week, it could be soon after. So people, please do write to your MPs, ask them to support Ricky Real Justice campaign. And also, somebody raised a question, I think a gentleman, about the police complaints, I think, in this program. Let me tell you that the only way we could reopen our investigation was to make a complaint against the police. And the irony of that is the police complaint is investigated by the police. It may be a different section of the station, a different police station, but it still comes under the same umbrella. So it's not an independent body. So really, you know, you really don't know whether you know, they are giving you all the information or whether they are hiding the information. In our case, they threw away and they destroyed a lot of information we had gathered. So all I want to say is it's very hard to run campaigns on your own. They are costly, they are time consuming. So if people can support each other, you know, there are days when we feel we are lonely. There are days when we feel we are so traumatized by Ricky's passing, and plus how we were treated by the police, that, you know, we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So if people do come aboard and help us just to get justice for Ricky, there are lots of families. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. I get phone calls during day and night. I get phone calls during midnight as well from people saying, could you help us? Just listen to us. And I do. We really need to be together for one another. Otherwise, we all be alone fighting in our little corners, not getting anywhere. Solidarity is important. Listening to everyone is important. Please don't offer condolences, because condolences is not going to get me justice. Your support is needed. I want people, when they say I'll help you, I want them to help me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sukhdev. Look forward to seeing you at the conference next week. Thanks again for coming. I'm gonna go for Janet. Janet, I don't know if Janet's still around, but if you are,
Yeah.
yes, Janet. So yeah, if you can quickly tell us how people can support and where you are, that would be really great.
Yeah, I first have to make a comment about Naomi, and you know, I can empathize with her, the isolation that she must be feeling, and especially, you know, with your child being targeted like that. You know, one of the reasons my son went to his dad's was because of the fear. I'd got myself into such a state, for one, and for two, it was the fear of the police targeting him because they were targeting me. So I can empathize with Naomi, but this is what I'm saying about, you know, while the lockdown's been going on, while everybody's thinking and sitting in their houses thinking that they're being safe from a virus, the Black community is being punished right, left and centre. You know, special lockdowns in special areas, Black areas or Asian areas. Totally different treatment, you know, from the rest of society. For example, you just have to look at the countries that was on the red list. Do you know what I mean? There were Black and Asian countries on the red list. So when they were traveling, they were having to pay £2,000 and stay in one of the government hotels. Do you know, if people can't see that what is going on is engineered racism in every aspect, yeah, I think they must be really selfish, yeah. Personally, my family's dealt with every part of the criminal justice system, every institution. We've dealt with the health service, with Christopher's body. We've dealt with the police. We've dealt with the IPCC. We've dealt with the government. So if people really cannot see that this is the whole of the system that's working alongside each other in all this, and Black and Asian people are being targeted in the Brexit Britain, yeah, they really, really, really need to stop and think again. As far as my campaign's concerned, you know, I'm looking in the respect where I've got a book coming out openly to tell the full story of what's happened to a family since childhood, since being in state authority care. And now we've grown up, you know, our family was dysfunctional and whatsoever. We were split all over the place. You know, there was racism in the military for Christopher. So I've got a book coming out trying to explain to people just how it can affect families. And one of the other things, I'm lucky enough to have been approached by the BBC, where we have got a 3-part series coming, just to give people a bit of a flavour what it's like to actually live in, you know, in a predominantly white society. And because, you know, Black people feel it every single day. You know, as a white person, you can go to the shop. A white person, you can go here, there and there. And believe you me, while you're doing that, some Black person somewhere has been targeted by the police and whatsoever. Just yesterday, I got a taxi, and I was at Alder, and the Asian taxi driver drove up, and behind him there was the police. The policewoman jumped out and that lot. Do you know what I mean? So I wondered what was going on. She was checking him to see if he had his seatbelt on, trailing him. Yeah. I believe this is a kind of a ploy that's been put forward by this racist government. Yeah, and they've been given the authority to basically do what they want. But the other thing I'm going to ask you is, there's a march last Saturday of the month in London for deaths in custody, and you will see the amount of families that have been fighting, some longer than me, 30 odd years, do you know what I mean? And you see the effects that it's had on families and whatsoever, because it doesn't just take that person's life away. it changes the life of the people that's fighting. And it also, that's a knock-on effect on the children and everything. Yeah, and it's up to us to hold the police and the state account, and the CPS, and the IPCC, and the NHS. The whole lot of it, it absolutely stinks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Hussein, if I can get you to come in. Don't know if Hussein's still around. No? Yeah, you are. Hussein, can we? Yes, here you are in 4K.
Thank you. First of all, it's been a privilege to be invited to speak and to speak among people such as Sukhdev, Naomi, and Janet. And I think that firstly, I just want to say to get involved with the campaigns that are around here. So you can find Justice for Christopher Capasso on all social media. You can find the Free Sianda campaign on all social media and their website, etc. Justice for Mahmoud Hassan and Justice for Mu'ayyid Bashir. And they're the campaigns that really we've been trying to support as much as possible. And I think, you know, in terms of organising, you know, what they want to do, you know, there has been somewhat of a decline in like Sukhdev says, it can feel lonely for a lot of campaigns. And I feel like, you know, we need to increase and continue the pressure on the police and continue the pressure on the state, because as Janet was just saying, I mean, this is a systemic problem that, you know, there is no solution that involves the police. There is no solution that involves this state. I mean, it's just quite clearly that this whole system has been set up on the fundamental basis of racism and exploiting Black and brown people, and in terms of the police, predominantly Black people. So it's incumbent on us to get involved in campaigns and to continue fighting the good fight, as they say. But I'll finish with this. I mean, if you know, the amount of death that we've seen in South Wales this last 6 or so months. I mean, if Netflix or some other streaming service made a documentary about 3 people who have been murdered by a serial killer, nobody would want to leave their house. But because it's the police, people think it's fine. And they've made them, you know, synonymous with justice, synonymous with safety. But the police are never about safety. You know, they go around harassing people. They're not there for public safety. The statistics on what they do is just absolutely, they kill more Black people than they do actually help rape victims, for example. They are an institution that we must get rid of. And I think, if you know, get involved in Stand Up to Racism, get involved in your BLM group, get involved in your Cop Watch. We've started a Cop Watch in Cardiff, and hold the police to account, hold the state to account, and let's dismantle it, to be honest with you. So I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hussein. And yeah, so thank you everyone for coming, giving up your Saturday afternoon and being part of this workshop. I just want to remind everybody that obviously this conference was free, but running Zoom facilities cost money. So if you'd like to donate to cover the cost of this conference, you can head to our website. The links are being posted in the Zoom chat. Just want to remind again that after this workshop is the international plenary. We've got lots of speakers from across the world speaking, and I will be one of the lovely co-hosts, so you should come to that. But thank you very much for being a part of this. Again, want to say a massive thank you to all our speakers. We send our love, our thoughts, our solidarity. Please do your research. Like Saeed said, join local groups if you can. Injustice anywhere, so threat to justice everyone, I think is up on all of us to come out and say that this, you know, conditions are unacceptable, and to fight for justice for people who are no longer here. So thank you very much. Take care. Have a nice cup of tea and break, and we shall see you at 5 o'clock for the international plenary. Thank you very much.